Hello and welcome to the Jarrod Thomas Show podcast. This week, East Grand Forks Mayor Mark Olstad is with us. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well.
Good.
So this, of course, what they've all been is kind of just a little bit of a checkup from the neck up over in East Side, my hometown. I believe it's 9,164 people now.
We are growing.
That's pretty amazing.
Henry Tweeden would be happy. We're getting close to 10,000.
Boy, you're going to push her over the top, you think, in your tenure?
I don't know. Maybe.
Do you like it? I mean, you've been on the council. You were on the council president. I mean, so you've been around. They've been kicking you around in East Side for a while.
Yeah, I was on the council for 12 years.
Yeah.
And 10 of those 12, I was the president of the council. Seemed like a natural thing to move into.
So the difference is, if I can try to, as mayor, it's more about visionary work, isn't it? How you want to try to shape a community.
Right. You're people try to say that you're just a model person out front. You spearhead projects, or you represent the city as best as you can. We, as in a city of East Grand Forks, we're called a charter commission. We're not a normal city. We have a charter which lays out the duties of the mayor or the council and the president. And as a figurehead, if you want to use that term, you, as mayor, oversee the police department, for one thing. Day-to-day actually falls underneath the city administrator, but the overall goes to the mayor. The president runs the meetings, puts the meetings together with the staff. The mayor doesn't have a vote on items. The only thing he can do is veto. So, and you have to follow the rules there. Veto, you have to wait at least, I think it's 5 days before you can do it.
Oh, wow.
So it gives you time to go back and think about it.
So I think back to the mayors that I've been exposed to. Mayor Stouse, rest his soul, was a fourth grade teacher of mine for two periods. For two periods, and then back in those days, Mrs. Tollefson handled the heavy lift, and then we walked across the hall to Mr. Stouse's classroom for a couple of hours every day.
Fourth grade classes.
See, I see what you did there. And then, so I've known him. I went to school with his son Scott, and Scott and I friends through the years, and so on. And so I'm familiar with the Stouse family. Mayor Stouse, of course, I thought. Was the right mayor at the right time during the flood of 1997. I think he did about as good a job as you could do. And then we get through the flood, and then there's a period of time there where he doesn't budge on raising taxes. And I think during times when taxes likely needed to be raised. Now, I don't want to say they needed to be raised 10%, 15%, 20%. But generally speaking, a city has to meet some inflationary needs, wants to give their people a raise, wants to buy a new plow. So you're going to need a little bit. And he dug in. And I believe, my recollection is 3 or 4 years of absolutely not doing it, not having it. So my question for you real quick is, so we get through the Gander years. Towards the end of the Gander years, there's a little bit more, I think, pretty heavy increases in taxes for the citizens of East Grand Forks. We're getting to the other side of that. So where does that sit today when you think about budgets that you're now responsible for?
Well, kind of give you a history on this, too, is that back in 2012, when we won the election, and I was elected for the Ward 5, for the 2013 budget cycle, there was a negative 1% that was proposed on the last day to vote on. So that's what started that roll of doing 9%, 10%, and looking at maybe a 19 or 20% increase, because they did that negative 1%. Someone proposed it, made the motion, and I was in the audience watching, learning about the council and everything before I started my term. So that's where that started. And so the next few years, we had to go into our reserves also. And state statute requires that you have between 35 and 50% in your reserves to last about 6 months.
Sure.
We were down in the 30s because we had to keep going down into the reserves. So when we started going back up, we made a plan that keep stuff back into the reserves. And right now, I do believe we're at 53 or 54%. So we're sitting good.
Mm-hmm.
Last year we did a 3% tax levy because we thought we need to give the citizens a break after what went on for the prior 10 years of trying to crawl back up where we're okay. The biggest challenge that we have, though, is every year, I think even all the businesses in any city is health insurance. Health insurance is a huge ticket item that last year...
Even a private business, I can tell you.
Last year, we had to switch to what's called an ICRA, which is basically kind of like MNsure almost, but it's an ICRA where every person is deemed themselves. They're not in a group. It's not a group plan.
Sure.
So every person got to go look at what is available. It could be a couple different companies they can pick from and different coverage. So, and it's run by age. It's not run by past issues. So we had to find a way to go, okay, we need to look at how we can increase, because we're looking at 16, 20%. And we were, before 24 started, we were looking at a 25 to 35% increase in premiums. I mean, we can't do that as a city. We can't do that to our employees.
Well, you can't do that. And then if you give a raise and you give 3, 4, 5%, they're going to look at you and say, but my health insurance went up 16%. Make it make sense to me, man.
Exactly. You know, and of the 10 years as being president, I also sat on our negotiations with all our unions. Exactly what the process was. Okay, well, this is what we want, but our insurance is here. I'm not making anything more. You know, you're pushing me backwards.
Yeah. Because
of our group plan. Our group plan was very hard for everyone because it looked at everybody, past issues. So they go, well, you know, you had this many claims for this dollar amount. Guess what? You're getting increases. So it was a difficult decision. We did a lot of surveys and a lot of studies with different ones, and it came down to doing this with this ICRA. And we're going to see this summer, we're going to reach out and say, okay, how's everything going with everybody, to see if we keep going with it. Because we can go back and now into another group plan if we want, but then the unknowns keep going every year.
So just the idea with the ICRA is Mark's a healthy guy, doesn't go to the doctor a lot. ICRA looks at that and goes, okay, your premium is X. This guy over here, Timmy's got all sorts of problems. He's at the doctor 4, 5, 6 times a week, gets a long-term illness. Okay, he's going to have to pay more. So he's Y. And then the city has to offset that some way, or are you just all on your own?
No, in the past we would do a percentage of the premium. We change it to a dollar amount now to make it more even with everyone.
Oh, okay.
Let's say a 24-year-old police officer or fireman or whoever has their premium as this low, and we have our elder people that work.
They go to the doctor more often,
and their premiums are here just because they go by age.
Sure.
So we had to make sure that was level in what we paid for, and that took a while to go through. I think we ended up pretty good. Some people saved a lot of money. They got money back in their check every month.
Well, don't you have more control too, though?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to pay for more of this out of pocket, then I guess go for it.
Yeah, you can pick whatever plan you want. So I've had some of them tell me they've a couple $100 a month in their paycheck, which is great. You know, as a young family, goes a long way. So, but it was a process, and like I said, we're going to see how it's going sometime this summer. So,
when you think about budgeting, and you think about the list of priorities for a community the size of East Grand Forks, where does your mind go immediately? Does it go right to property taxes? Does it go Does it go right to, hey, we have to have more amenities because that's what people want to move to a community? Do we need to attract more businesses, or all of the above?
I think you kind of have a global outlook at it. Excuse me. First thing you have to think about, okay, well, for example, this year, where it's all negotiations again. We have all the unions all at one time. So there's 4 unions. So there's going to be asked from them.
Mm-hmm.
So you start looking at, okay, where were we at before? What's, the size of towns of East Grand Forks? What are they doing for increases? Then you have to look at if you are going to have any retirements, which will help out. Can you get some more entry persons coming in to fill that spot? But then you also have to look at, go back to insurance. What is their premium going to be? Because normally you won't find that out until later in the process, which is not good. But then you sit down, and I've already started doing this. I've been sitting down with all the department heads and going, okay, how is our department running? What are your guys' needs? What are the projects or something that we need to do? Could be building, could be whatever. So what's that look for you for next year and farther out?
Mm-hmm.
Is there projects that we have to plan for? So there's different things that you have to think about, because if you just think about year to year, you're going to be in a pain next year because, well,
always.
So it's something that you look out 5 years.
Yeah.
So and then you take that dollar amount and, okay, well, we can't do 10% tax levy on that for the city. We can't do it, which, Minnesota's a different tax levy. It's not really 10%.
Right.
3% is not really a 3%. It was like 1.5 total, really.
Right.
So, but you look at it and go, okay, no, let me go back to everybody in the department and go, no, we're not doing this. We can't do this to these people. Is there something that, we can get some other funding for a street project? What does our state aid look like this year? Did we spend it all? We get so many dollars from them every couple of years. So when we have these projects we do. But the process starts out with, Reed, our city administrator, meeting. He meets weekly with all the department heads. So you start the process soon of, okay, what do we need? Do we need to repair a roof? Do we need to buy a Bobcat or, new cruiser for the police department?
Yep.
So when you plan those out, and then you go, okay, we can wait till this year. We can move this to that year, and then you can start looking at it more, okay, now we have a package we have here. We can.
Yeah, and there's always things too that I think are interesting that I don't know that people. I'm certainly not in the business of calling anybody stupid, but I do believe that drawing attention back to the complexity of the puzzle has value, because if you give the police department a police cruiser, that means that you don't put new carpeting in that building. So that waits another year. Right. Then eventually you've got to do the carpeting, which means the Bobcat doesn't get bought. So now you're renting a Bobcat, and that's an expense that maybe you didn't anticipate, but man, that project's got to get done. So we're going to rent the Bobcat. So I just, when people talk about taxes, and in North Dakota, of course, it's a forever conversation. It's not uncommon in a city like East Grand Forks either, but the complexity of it matters because it's a big old puzzle, and then ultimately you bring it to the council, and the council says, looks great. Now, we shouldn't forget either that the council also has maybe some pet projects, maybe has some favorite things that they would like to do. So getting them on board matters too, and all of it takes time for a part-time mayor.
Yeah, it does. I'll give you an example. It even goes back to Mayor Stouse. When I first got on, it was actually right before I got on, we were working on the pool. They were talking about, okay, what are we going to do for the pool? All these repairs have to be done. And so I started working with my wife, Melody, and we looked at, okay, how do we help out the city? Because they're going to close it, like all these repairs. And I went to council, I went to Water and Light, and, and asked, well, how can we help? What can we do? How do we do this? And it was to a group benefit of people that came together and created Save Our Pool to help out. But also it took the council to work with Water and Light to borrow money so that we could do the project, because at the time there was
no money.
No money. We got a couple grants here and there. We did some fundraisers, sold some wristbands and some hot dogs.
I remember.
Parade and it was one of those things. But to work with them before I even got in council, to walk through that process of how do we do this, move this around, like you're saying, it came down to 5 minutes before we walked into council chambers after I was elected and I was serving for Ward 5 to vote on the sales tax that we did for that. I was in Mayor Staus's office talking with him and I, and he didn't want to do it because, I don't know if didn't really know if we should. He was going back and forth like he should.
That's right.
I walked out with him, had no idea what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Sat down, we started talking about it, and Mayor Staus says, well, Mark convinced me, let's do the sales tax. When we went through the process with the state, we did the vote, we got over 70% from the citizens to do it, and we paid it off 2.5 years early also.
Yeah.
So it was, but those are the things that different projects that people have.
Well, there's sales tax made the old proverbial show sheet here. I don't know if we'll get to it today, but I think it's worthy of a conversation. Mm-hmm. There's another sales tax that's in the mix, but I want to circle back to that. Another question that I was wondering or curious about is I've become like this weird observer of news and the podcast. I like the podcast because I'm not in a studio 3 hours at a crack, right? I mean, this is, for those that don't know, I know we started the show with Good Morning, but we're in the afternoon and this will drop in the morning next Tuesday. But so I've been watching and I've been curious to ask you, how do you feel your relationship with Grand Forks is?
I think we have a pretty good relationship. In the past, I know there was always talk, that it was maybe not as good. Since I've been on council and even mayor now, I think we've had a pretty good relationship. We talk a lot. Our staff talks to each other. So I think it's grown over the years in a good way. And I hope it keeps that way.
You'd say you're on the same page?
I think so.
So help me understand then bridges. It seems that East Grand Forks, this was more prevalent with Mayor Gander. It seemed like it was a bit, now he's in St. Paul, so it's maybe, we'll get to where he's at with all of this too. But now Grand Forks and East Grand Forks don't seem to be on the same page with bridges. There's an MPO element to all of this. The people in Grand Forks I talk to say it can't go where the folks in East Grand Forks would like it to go. The folks in East Grand Forks say it's way too far south for where we want it in Grand Forks. So can you kind of connect some of the dots for us and why this project continues to keep life?
I think one of the big reasons is the South End Bridge, the Far South Bridge, is what keeps it going for a couple of reasons. Most people that have lived here are around during August, September, October timeframe when there was sugar beets rolling down Demers Avenue, and other farm products, on Highway 2 even. But I think one of the biggest things that people talk about and want to see is I would like to see the very South End Bridge get built. I can work in looking at the future if there's going to be another one. That's fine. It's a totally separate discussion for me. But I think the South End is more for getting that traffic out of our downtowns, getting a safety route for our farmers to get to wherever they're going. And connect up from south of Grand Forks out to 220 over to Highway 2 and then Crystal Sugar or wherever else they're going. I think it's something that is needed. I think it's, like I said, one main thing is safety. And I've talked to a lot of the Polk County commissioners also, and most of them are ag-based people that have lived in Polk County forever, and they were like, yeah, this is a great idea.
So for you, it appears like, or for the community of East Grand Forks, it seems like it's almost two separate conversations. A South End Bridge that is used primarily for ag movement, whether that's semis or beat trucks or whatever it is, forces that traffic further south of really both communities and then links up somewhere. So with that in mind, then what's as far south as that makes sense? Does 47th, does 62nd? Because MPO what I thought was interesting was MPO put a 25-year plan out there. The 25-year plan came to maturity. It was supposed to go at 32nd, and everybody just kind of looked the other way.
Right.
So if MPO is going to go through the effort of the study and all the things that go into something like that and say the next one needs to go at 62nd or Merrifield or wherever, what's the reasonable assurance that the bridge will get done?
Well, that's a good point. One of the things that has to be done is we have to go through all those studies too, which is not cheap. It's millions and millions of dollars. And we applied for funding for that last year, and we're hoping that we'll finally get funding to do it, to help. But that study is not just to find, do all the soil testing, whatever, but that's going to tell us where the best spot is for the bridge. And I think that will help guide the discussion more. I think we need to walk through that study, and that's going to take a while to do that. This is not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
We first need to get the funding.
Well, and I know that it's a passion project of, or at least it was. Maybe his priorities have changed since he's gone to St. Paul. But I didn't hear, I heard a lot about it when he was mayor of the city of East Grand Forks. And it seemed at times that the city of East Grand Forks would continue to move forward, even though the city of Grand Forks was like, hell no. We're not we're not going to do it. And my thought was East Side will be standing there with their money going, let's go. And the city of Grand Forks will say, well, go ahead, build your half a bridge. And when we get to it, we get to it. Yeah.
Well, one of the big reasons you haven't heard much about it is because of the funding for that study. That just didn't happen. So that's the main reason why it's kind of quieted down, because we're going to have to try to get it again. But once we get to that spot again, and hopefully Grand Forks gets done with all their big projects.
Well, it does, though, Mark. It makes a lot of sense because if I go downtown, Grand Forks is almost completely redone from where it was 25, 30 years ago. I think it's beautiful.
Both sides.
Well, I was getting to East Side, and I was in East Side just the other day, and my wife and I go to a movie, and we have a meal, and we walk over to Cabela's, and my buddy Justin's got the Olstad Jr. over there. I mean, it's a thriving area of the world. And to have beat trucks come bouncing downtown even 30, 45 days, we love you, guys. And you're only doing what you got to do. We get it.
Exactly.
This isn't a commentary on you. You're doing what you got to do. But it does make perfect sense that if we're going to have thriving downtowns, it's counterintuitive to having guys running through there at midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning with big beat trucks.
Yeah, and that's the main thing too. Is
and
there's
safety.
nothing against them.
No, not at all. They're just doing what they got to do.
Yeah.
Please, I hope nobody takes it that way. That's not the commentary at all. The commentary is very simply to say that, it makes a lot of sense, and it probably makes a lot of sense. The beat truck drivers would like it too, most of which maybe are part-time, would prefer to be further south of town.
Not all the
narrow
road to go through.
Yeah, and they've got almost a gateway. Not for them, but for them, at least the time of year when they need it.
And Crystal Sugar would really appreciate it too. I mean, they're thinking of safety on their end. They're looking at how they can take people, trans systems and all the other trucks off, going all the way down 5th there past Stough's Park, and then taking a left on Business Highway 2. They want to see if they can get them to come up right up 10th, right by the Water and Light Building.
Sure.
And go in that way just to get them off that traffic going back and forth, because there's kids out there in the park, and there's other traffic.
And the sad part is, and I say it all the time, and I'm not saying it in jest, is that's when a bridge gets built.
Yeah,
is when somebody
exactly
dies or gets severely hurt. That's when we decide, it does make sense. All of a sudden, money doesn't matter as much, right? All right. So Grand Forks got a new police chief. Interesting. I won't say this has been his first priority, but one of his first priorities was to take a look at camping and what turned out to be sleeping in cars in public areas. Now, my words, certainly not yours. We have a bit of a homeless problem here in Grand Forks. So the fine, from what I understand, or what was reported out of the award-winning KNOX newsroom, was that fine, non-criminal fine, could get into the neighborhood of $1,000. Now, again, I'm guessing that's, hey, this is the 33rd time we've talked to you. Okay, you're not getting it. I don't know the wisdom in finding a homeless person $1,000. Seems like that is a exercise in futility, but I don't make the rules. I just comment on them. The question, though, that I have for you is, this will likely make some of the homeless people do something yeah. And so they could make their way, and the camping in a public area, I think that's a tip of the cap to Town Square and people sleeping on the benches in the different areas that are down there, in particular this time of year and through the summer and into the fall. So they're going to move, I would assume. It makes it, again, I'm not Magellan, but it makes sense to me that they'd crawl across the Soiley Bridge, and now all of a sudden, I hate to talk about people as problems, but they become your problem or the city of East Grand Forks' problem. Any chatter amongst your leadership to say, we have to do something too to get in concert? I know just because one city does something, the other city doesn't necessarily always do the same thing. But do you think about that when you see the city just to your west do something like this?
I was following it a little bit, and I did hear the story yesterday, I guess, when I was driving home. We have not had any discussions on it that I'm aware of. I haven't had any discussions with the police chief in East Grand Forks or the city administrator. So right now is...
Well, the stories I hear, now stories, stories, I want to be clear, is that there's an outfit that's actually bringing people to Grand Forks and East Grand Forks and is dropping them off and just saying, best of luck to you.
There you go.
And so our homeless population then by proxy is, using my air quotes a bit here, is exploding or is getting larger. And so maybe not a problem as we sit here in late May, but maybe in August, if we were to do this again, you might say, holy Hannah, every nook and cranny of the city, we're finding people. I don't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah, and I would hope it wouldn't happen, but like you said, the migration from where they might get fined to where they right now currently won't get fined. I'm sure there's some people thinking that, but I haven't heard anything. So
okay, so far that's flying below the radar, and the
correct.
912 things you're worrying about that hasn't reached the radar just yet. Deer. Over in Grand Forks here again, they're exploring the idea of having a controlled hunt. I believe this was something that has happened over in East Grand Forks. I recalled the other day on the air with Ryan Cunningham a conversation that I had with then councilperson Mike Pukshavinsky, where we talked about he was a big fan of letting deer be deer and just do their thing. And I said, that's fine until my 73-year-old mother hits a deer and she gets severely injured. I'll be coming for you. They're everywhere. I've got pictures in my phone from my buddies who it's a group text message from Hellmark. I'd certainly invite you to it, but I like you too much, so I won't do that to you. Where they're taking pictures and there's fawns now, so they're out. How big of a problem is this in East Grand Forks, the Greenway, and they don't feel any pressure, so they feel like they can do their thing? Just a few comments on that.
Yeah, we've noticed there's hundreds of them out there. When we started talking about this and possibilities of doing a controlled hunt, it's a bow hunt only. We had to work with the DNR to see if this is possible, because the Greenway, and of course we have the campground there, which DNR owns that property and land north of Highway 2 there. So we had a survey. We had our police department, as their shift went on, okay, every time you see some deer, write it down. And then we had an idea it was a couple hundred deer, running around the city, north and south end, because of the river.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've I live on the north end, and on the state recreation area, inside the flood walls, they were always in there, and they're always coming across the road.
Yeah.
I've had people tell me that they jumped over the hood of their truck, so it was a problem that we had passed laws not to feed deer. We actually had to pass an ordinance saying, no, you can't do this, because people because they like to look at them.
Yeah,
And,
I know.
So
it's crazy.
We got down to where we had 10, we had a lottery. People applied for it. We had a lottery. We did 10 the first year. And 6 of those 10 did harvest a deer within that time period. This year we made it more, and we're actually teamed up, and we're going to have a disabled hunt. So there's going to be 4 of those that they're going to be able to use. And
it's a good idea.
So, yeah, and so that's going to be nice to see how that turns out. If it does turn out well, we're going to keep maybe growing how many we do. We just want to make sure we take small steps in it, not to create.
So do you see, I mean, it sounds like a little bit of a smaller mini hunting season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And it's we have 2 weeks to do it. So we're trying to get it where it's during normal bow hunting. And if you don't get it within those time periods, you're done. You can't go back out. So we've worked with, like I said, the DNR to set it up to make sure all the parameters were there, follow the state regulations, and also where they can be, the maps. We have more control over that, where they are. There's different zones you can be in. So there's only so many people with a lottery ticket can hunt in zone 5, and only certain people can be in zone 2, wherever. So they're not all in one zone on top of each other. So we have them spread out.
That's kind of the other thing. And do you ever worry about it getting to where you use a firearm?
It came up. Questions like that come up. We luckily first year we had no issues with that at all. Everybody had to go through training proficiency. They had to go shoot, and make sure they are able to shoot a bow and arrow. They had to hit a target. So it was every year everybody has to do that. So if you want to do it, you have to follow those rules. No firearms. So hopefully.
Did you have plenty of people wanting to do it?
Yes.
Well, that's good. That's really good news.
Yes, and I'm forgive me, I don't remember the number, but it was a lot more than we had tickets for.
That's even
that's why we did the lottery.
Yeah, that makes me smile, because what can happen is that the same 5 guys every year are working the same 5, and then all of a sudden you're finding food plots and you're finding all kinds of things in there because they're hanging stands and
that
doing
was one
all
of my
kinds of
questions
things.
This year when we went through the process again of discussing it. How are we doing this? And we're not going to allow people to have it every year. So it's going to be a rotation. They can have so many years off not doing it, and they can reapply it to do it again. Because that was my question. I said, well, if we get the same people and we do the lottery and they get picked again, well, I mean, the other person's been going, hey, that guy did it last year.
There has got to be some nice-sized deer in there. There just has to be. They haven't been pressured for years.
I had a neighbor who used to feed them all the pumpkins after Halloween. And apple tree in the backyard. That apple tree, the resident moved out, and new owners came in. They go, getting rid of that.
Yeah,
deer were congregating so bad in our backyard. But it's an issue.
The thing with deer is they bring about other predators. So if you want coyotes and bobcats and mountain lions and those kinds of things in your community, don't do anything with the deer. And if you're feeding deer, you're also feeding bobcats, coyotes, mountain lions, and all the rest of them. I know that there's a lot of people that like to look at the deer and they're harmless and all the things, but they can become a real issue for communities. And it's becoming an issue, or has become an issue over here. And the Greenway, which I'm told, of course, is used and it's loved and all the things. It's funny, I don't talk to a lot of people that are on the Greenway. That I don't talk to 100,000 people in the metro, so I'm guessing that when they tell me it's being used, it is, but I've never found one. It's not to say we should get rid of it, certainly if people are using it, but it's a little bit of a plus minus, isn't it? That you have this wonderful outdoor space that we're getting to the 100 days or so a year we get to use it. Really, I mean, I know there's people that we haven't had snow for 2 years, so it's been hard to snow be a snowmobiler and be on it and all the things. But it's one of these things that is kind of an unintended consequence of having a space like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it, when they did this, after the flood, the vision of people who created the Greenway, why would you think that down 20 some years later that we'd have this huge deer population? I mean, it's, yes, maybe it was in the back of their minds, but even, I live a block and a half from the river, and they walk down the street, like you said, like when they wave at you.
Almost, yeah. No, they are absolute. And I mean, I know you believe me. I could show you pictures of and now they're walking around with a fawn or two.
Yeah.
And so I get it. I mean, I'm not a deer hunter myself for a lot of years. I understand it, but I also understand that, a city's got to handle this kind of thing, or, like I say, it's a legitimate concern that my mother, who's just running, to the Hugos over there on the east side to do her weekly grocery shopping, comes up that little hill over there by the South End Fire Station, and she gets greeted by a deer. And I only say that because I know that it's happened.
Oh, and flood wall right there.
Yep, flood wall. And you can't.
Watch your view.
Yeah, and for most everybody who's, I grew up on the point, the sharp end of town. It's just a part of travel. It's what you do. But when I grew up, there was houses down by the river. There used to be an old Valley Dairy over there. I mean, it looked a whole heck of a lot different now than it did
Eagles
then.
was over there.
The Eagles was over there. Been to a wedding dance or two. Spent 3 years of my life there one night too, Mark. So it's been quite the experience. I want to circle back to sales tax. We referenced it earlier. Now, I believe, and as I was poking around the website a little bit, the 1% sales tax passed for 20 years, right? So I believe that means 4.7, and these are round numbers, so a little grace would be appreciated. 4.7 million to the Civic, 2 million, I believe, to the ball fields over there, 8 million to the VFW Arena. In total, almost $15 million to get the improvements going and so on. So the question that I have, and you referenced it earlier too with the pool, that when the projects were done, the sales tax was retired. Is the same true here? This 1% can go for 20 years or until the projects are done?
It can go until the project is completed and paid off. Once the sales tax goes into effect, which should be in July, I believe, it can only run for that time period and for those dollar amounts only. So once we hit that, paid off that, it's done. It's no longer we can charge the 1%. So
now, I mean, I could throw a stone and find 12 people that tell me that all these projects are needed, and I don't. I mean, again, I've been in the Civic, I've been in the VFW, I've been in these places. They need help. There's no doubt, and there's a lot of things that are happening. Essentially, new parking lots, different work at the Civic Center that's need to be done, like a new floor for the rink. Civic Center is a great place to watch a hockey game or to just really watch anything. So, I mean, it's a building worth preserving and all the things. So that's not the point. The point I'd be curious on, though, is it seems like lawmakers are getting comfortable with the idea of sales tax to pay for things. Would you fall into that camp?
I don't think so. I think the discussion that we've had on these arenas ever since I've been on council and trying to figure out how we could do it, how we're going to raise money. One of the things we thought, well, okay, we can get some bonding money from the state of Minnesota, which would be, here's a chunk of change. You can go do that, what you guys need to do with it. Well, that's changed down there, how they're doing things and what they're doing bonding for. So, I mean, the discussion going back and forth, I mean, we started this project and said, okay, if we're going to do everything we need to do, and there's going to be some that maybe enhancements that maybe we want, not need, we were at like $32 million, and we pared it down, and we're still hoping that we can start the fundraising and get to a point where we can do that field for the baseball, and can do other enhancements. Because most of the things that are going to be done no one's going to see really. It's HVAC or it's, the cooling system.
Yeah, but you're not going to be nauseated when you leave the VFW arena anymore.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, those things
Air
are
handlers.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are going to happen. Like I said, that aren't good. EDA compliance. State and federal law says if you go over this dollar amount and change a percentage of the building, you have to do all these other ADA stuff for it. And that's why in past years it was okay. We're going to do this to a point because we don't have the money to do the other stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a process that we walked through and we had a lot of discussions on. I don't think anybody was like, ooh, we need to do the sales tax. So this is how we're going to do it. And a lot of feedback, a lot of meetings with people, sitting at the Civic Center, taking surveys, talking to people. All over.
I remember the renderings and all of the, so what's it going to look like if I okay this? Well, what's it going to, and then there's people, I don't like hockey. Well,
I think that's why the discussion went into more of like bringing in the baseball, with the home run club, and not just the Blue Line Club, because they've been around forever, and they do a lot of fundraising themselves and pay for a lot of things too that are in those buildings that people don't know that. City didn't pay for some of that stuff. Blue Line, they raise money, and
I've got plenty of friends that are on the Blue Line Club, and I know I've bought plenty of $20 raffle tickets to say that. Yeah, put me down for one, and then we're Venmoing money but and you don't mind supporting it, and you get while they're doing it, and kids got to have. Again, I played basketball and all the. But it's a hockey town, and has two facilities that I think absolutely need the work. Or it was getting to a point, I think, with the VFW that you're going to have to make a real decision there if this didn't pass.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we had to really think about how are we going to do this. Well, first thing out of people's mouths, well, I guess taxes are going to go up, and you're like, well, we can't do that, So, okay, can we bond for it ourselves? Can we go out there and okay, we need to do this, and we're going to do it for 20 years ourselves, and still it gets put back under the property tax.
Yeah.
So that was the real worry is okay, if it doesn't pass, what are we going to do? We're going to end up closing this. And and we're like,
yeah, it's a big deal. It would have been a hard conversation to have in the community of East Grand Forks about whether or not to shut an arena, especially when I think you would find a lot of organizations in East Grand Forks would tell you we already struggle for ice time. We can't get the times that we want. We can't. There's certainly enough business, if you will, for two facilities, and certainly there's an economic engine component to this as well.
Yes. There's other clubs like the skating club, they talk about, well, we want nice time too. And that'd be another component where they run into the hockey teams and stuff.
I know I've watched your wife and my sister do plenty of ice shows through the years. Yeah.
And one of the things that we were looking at was actually moving, not closing, not shutting it down, moving the senior center to be part of between the VFW and the Blue Line Club. We were looking at, was one of the options, was one of our, if we could do this.
Yeah.
Was to connect those buildings and have the senior center in there so they could be able to walk the arenas or other activities they could do in that building. So we were trying to look at combining it so then we could get rid of something that we wouldn't have to maintain anymore.
Sure.
And that was a discussion that came out that like, you guys are going to close us down. No, we weren't going to close it down. We were just thinking about how we can move into consolidate the buildings that we have, and so that it was going to be a cost savings for us. But I think the VFW, the lot of work that needs to be done. How many times the roof is, has issues. All the, ADA compliant stuff again in that building.
Well, and that's why I point back to sales tax seems especially tied back to amenities. I think taxpayers understand, and in Grand Forks it's a little bit opposite in that it's 60% taxpayer and 40% business taxpayer is how it works in Grand Forks. And so I think the taxpayer understands that, I got to have police. I need clean water. You never want to pay for a fire department until you need one, right? But you got to have these things. I think most people can wrap their brains around that. And I think what I've observed lawmakers pivot to is, well, the sales tax can be viewed as a user tax. If somebody from Canada comes down and spends $4,000 at Cabela's, well, then they, did their part or paid their fair share, as we like to say. And so I wonder, I was curious about that, because it seems like it's a pretty acceptable strategy among taxpayers. Lawmakers seem to get out of it without mortgaging a lot of political capital, if you will. Mm-hmm. It seems a little safe. But I've always wondered if you thought it was a good way to do business.
I don't know if it's a good way to do business. I think it's
a way to do business.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that was our process of trying to figure out how can we do this without doing that sales tax. And it just kept circling back, going, okay, well, this is our way to getting these things done. And state has changed how they allow, because you have to get permission from the state to even think about doing it.
Sure.
And the appetite down there has lessened and lessened of allowing them to be done. The last time we had to get the vote, go down there, get their approval. We had to show the buy-in from the citizens. Well, right after that, they changed it where they have to give you permission first. Then you come back and do the vote. So they have to approve it in their... Now...
See, I don't like that either.
Now they changed it again.
Oh.
They're going to allow certain projects to be done, like waste management or water or whatever. Just they have a few things that were on the list. But if you want something else, you need to go back down to them. So it's kind of, they want to do a sales tax down there in Minneapolis, for tourism, and I'm like, really?
Well, the Spores, we go to the Twin Cities a lot, and I'll tell you, it's become less and less one of my favorite places. They ask you to do things down in the Twin Cities that I see certain fees and taxes that are applied to a food bill that. Where the hell did that come from?
Our hotel room.
Yeah. Oh, the hotel. Oh, you started on hotel rooms. I mean, it is changing, and it's really, as much as it sounds like we're being, like there is plenty of money, right? There is money, but really communities that, again, we referenced it earlier when I asked about budgets, and you have only so many revenue streams, and the Civic Center, just as the example, got passed over a lot because, well, we have other priorities. Mm-hmm. And then eventually the hand got forced a little bit, because I remember Reed was still the Park and Rec guy at the time, and he was talking about this Freon that, hey, look, the clock is ticking, guys. We got to do something. Yeah, we know. But, we also got to make sure that we get this ditch dug over here, and we get the industrial park for the longest time, needed paved roads or whatever it was. And so for the longest time, there was always, we know. Well, we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. And eventually, these projects end up costing $6.5 million and $8 million.
Well, look at the Quiet Zone example.
Yes.
We worked on that for years.
Yes. It's another good one.
That thing got delayed and got delayed. We had estimates for around $1 million. Well, it's doubled. Wow. By the time we got it. And now there's a few finishing touches that they have to do. The BNSF does, and hopefully June 20th is going to be the date the horns shut off. So Sacred Heart will be happy over there. And all the other daycares are on there.
I remember watching my niece and nephew and plays over there, and all of a sudden you'd hear, for 30 seconds, whatever the rule is. Yeah. I know there's 2 longs and a short, or 2 shorts and a long, where the hell it is.
Yeah, it's going to be nice. I'm glad we finally got to that finish line. But we did our Lafayette Park. That cost more money too. We looked at it. Okay, well, we need to do it. Luckily we got grants for that. Most of it, 75% of it, was like $1.7 million that we got. So that was a project that needed to be redone. It's going to be nice. It's going to help even Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, whatever you want to call them. In the past couple of years, they've talked about adding on, because Bass Pro Shops, took over Cabela's. They have their own line for, side-by-sides and boats. So that'd be an amenity that they could go, great. Now we have a nice place to take people. You can take the boats out in the river. So that was one of the things that they helped raise money at their store too, and donated money to the city to help pay for some of that.
Yeah,
so it's a partnership that has been working out great.
Yeah, it looks nice. They've put some new signage up. It looks like they've added a fresh coat of paint. Seems to be thriving. Every time I'm that way, it looks as if there's plenty of people that are walking in and out of the doors, and so I have to imagine that Cabela's and Bass Pro Shops are feeling pretty good about that investment. And it's, again, downtown East Grand Forks. Don't sleep on it. It's thriving. There's a lot of things that go on down there. Wow. And I try to get a table at the Blue Moose after 5 o'clock at night. You'll be waiting.
Last week, of course, was UND graduation. We tried to get in the Blue Moose. It was over an hour away. We actually ended up going to the Shire.
Oh, beautiful. Love it there.
It was great. Great food there. I held my civic social there. I didn't see you there, though.
Oh. Well, was I invited?
Chamber sends it out. They had everything.
Oh, okay.
So it was great. Reason I held it at the business and why I didn't do the dinner was I wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to talk to people.
Yeah.
And talk to businesses and talk to the citizens. So it was a great thing that we had appetizers from Shire. We had them able, since city can't do it, they were able to sell a cash bar.
Sure.
People were sitting around relaxed talking. I gave a 10-minute thing only, and then spent the rest of the time talking to people. But highlighted the Shire as I was doing it, because I wanted to make sure we're highlighting the businesses too. So
we love that place. I love the BLT that's over there. There's
Ron Burgundy Burger is good too.
Yes, yeah, no, it's a fantastic place, and if you haven't been, get to the Riverwalk Center and try it, and then go to one of the 15 movies. We love sitting in the recliners. I mean, there's just so many good things going on, and then the state park, of course, still turns a dime. I see that's busier than busy again.
Last year was one of their busiest years they've had. I can tell you because I brought.
Look at you! Came ready to go.
It was my speech from a couple weeks ago.
Oh, hey now.
So they had campground 20th year in 2024. It was 24 was their busiest year. They had 12,573 total camping nights reserved. The previous was 11,700.
What do you think makes it special? Is it the location?
I think it's the location and the capabilities of walking over,
sure,
and going to eat or going to watch a movie or going to, Cabela's.
Sure.
I think that's the biggest thing that they see there is we're hoping that we keep the Canadians coming down because they love to stay in there also. I have people that live in East Grand Forks still go, hey, we are going to the campground this weekend.
Yeah.
And they'll stay overnight. I had friends that came to UND graduation last weekend, and that's where they stayed, was a campground. Because it's cheaper than getting a hotel room.
Yep.
They're like, hey, if we have the camper, why don't we just use that?
Yeah. Well, and I go that way. Valley Golf Course is another wonderful amenity in East Grand Forks. I spend plenty of time over there. You can find me there most weekends, Mark. But when you come down the Highway 2 there, so I can get on River Road there to head on over. You can see it's full. It's full every weekend. Yeah. It's just incredible.
Imagine if there was a South End Bridge, you could leave work and then be faster
tripped.
Wouldn't
that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Mark, anything else before we wrap this up for today?
Maybe I would like to highlight a couple things that are going on this summer too. July 25th and 26th is the Catfish Days. That's always a big
It's a fun time.
Draw.
Yeah.
They this year they're maybe toned it down, pared it back a little bit. They're only going to do the tournament. They're not going to have all the other things going on. Just is getting so expensive.
A little bit of a reset.
And so they're just going to do that, but that's July 25th and 26th, which is going to be great. There's also thing that is going to happen on the 26th. It's called the South Advocates Minnesota Northwest Region. These people reached out to me, and it's a disability group. If they're running as disability is not a bad word, and they're going to have a first ever get together in East Grand Forks on July 26th.
Oh, cool!
And they're going to be up by the fire department there in the Veterans
Sure.
Memorial. So that's going to be that day. So
That'll be
glad
fun.
they could put that together.
Heck yeah.
And I mentioned the Quiet Zone is going to be great. We're going to have that done middle of. Also, Heritage Days, 50th year. They're going to have a parade that Thursday before. It's going to be August 7th through the 10th.
That's crazy.
Parade. So Dale already warned me that I'll be on a tractor leading the parade up River Road and over to 17th.
If you've never been to Heritage Days, you should absolutely check it out.
Saturday, I have to come out and watch the hot dish contest. So I'll be judging.
You're judging. You're not making one.
Not making it. Judging.
It's good to be mayor.
Last year, Mayor Gander, when he was mayor, did it with me. It was, and this year we're going to do it again. He's going to do it. So Brian Larson, the council president, is going to do it most likely.
Sure.
So, but yeah, it was a good time. It's you get to eat a few different ones that you've never had before, and you're like
hot dishes, man. Very peculiar about it. Hot dishes. I got a weird thing with. I got to know what kitchen it comes from. I know your wife, so if she made you a hot dish, I'd be, because I know Mel and all the things. So, I mean, that'd be fine. But I'm not, quite obviously, perhaps, not weird about many foods. But I need to at least know what kitchen it comes from. So again, but I know, I'm sure you'll eat like just this side of a king that day.
Yeah, it was a fun time. I even got Matthew, the Herald reporter, was sitting there, and one of the judges didn't show up, so Matthew had got to come up and eat with us. So it was kind of
it's a nice way to get a couple extra 100 words out of them.
So one thing that maybe has been out there that what we're looking at, we're actually been working with Simplot. Finally, we are hoping soon that we'll be able to acquire that land that's been sitting vacant on Highway 2 there, between Old Ryan Potatoes and the gas station.
Sure.
So that's something that we've been working on. I know it's out there. I brought it up at my thing a couple weeks ago, that we're listened last year with a lot of businesses. Like we need some land. We need land so we can do something with business, commercial, and retail, whatever it is.
Sure.
Which we didn't have any. So we've reached out to them for years and years, and Simplot's a great company, and they don't like to let go of land. So we've been working with them to.
Well, then they should do something with it.
Yeah. So I'm
sure is the argument.
We would not hold on to it though. We would immediately have a developer come in. So we don't need to be in that business.
Right.
But that's something that hopefully the next few months we'll sign a deal and be able to promote development.
For East Side, I mean, you've got to go north and east.
Yeah.
I mean, really. I mean, you got the corridor there, and you've got an industrial park that I think really came to life just after the flood, and to some degree during the flood. I mean, so yeah. I guess I hadn't really thought about it until you mentioned it. That I mean, you're to the acquiring land portion of the program.
Yeah, and that was the hardest thing for us is, okay, what do we do? How do we do this? And I met with the DNR last week, working on as you always say, pet project. This is something that I worked on with some other people, but is developing a new office building for the DNR there for the campground, but also doing something else there with it. That would be, fit into that area.
Every time I go, maybe a fun fact about your boy JT is that I love zoos. And I got to tell you, the last time that we were at the Minnesota Zoo, and my 22-year-old kid just rolls her eyes, right? And my wife, she doesn't. So I said, we got to go. Not the Como Zoo, but the Minnesota, the I call it the good one. Not anything wrong with the Como, but I like this one. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching. They had a show with birds. And I thought, immediately when you started talking, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have a stage, right? Just a small, I don't know, couple 100-person stage. Maybe it's leveled a little bit, so you're looking down on it. And they're doing things, teaching people about, conserving when you find a wounded bald eagle, this is what you do, and you're educating and you're doing these different things that I think would be wonderful, not only for kids, but for zoo nerds like me to stop by and say.
I do believe the campground this weekend is actually having a seminar on something like that with the birds and wildlife and other things. So the DNR will run, but we were looking at having a different office there, having some other amenity that would be on the side of closer to the river. That would be like a area, kind of like what you're saying, but and so we're in the stages of, they were very excited. We actually had people come up from St. Paul to talk about it. So people from Bemidji brought them over, which is great. Was welcomed. And I think we're trying to keep moving forward. And
that, Mark, I think that would be, and I know you're not in it for this, but it's a nice legacy too. I mean, you work on something and then over the years somebody says, hey, well, how about this? Well, hey, how about this? And then pretty soon, you got kids fishing in the river and you got kids doing all kinds of things from that one spot.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that, well, for one thing, again, city will not be involved in doing it. It'll be a developer. So, and because
I know why we have to qualify, but I hate that we do.
Yeah. So,
well, I tell you, lots of good things going. I think you guys are doing a lot of smart people that are on the council. I know that there can always be, and I mean this as respectfully as humanly possible, there can be a little bit of fingers crossed because sometimes you don't get the participation that maybe you would like. It would be nice to have fruitful races. I know you ran unopposed as an example. I mean, I'm sure you wouldn't have minded a conversation about ideas and different things. And again, you're handling it just well, and so far, are you enjoying it? That's the other.
I'm really enjoying it. I enjoy working with the staff, looking at these different ideas, and we can make this city expand so that we don't have to look at 10, 15, 20% tax levies, so we can expand that base.
Yeah.
And working with Maggie, the new EDA director, she's been doing great things, and we're hoping that we keep growing.
I'm telling you, fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. I grew up in East Side, so I know there can be some challenges with that last statement, but it is a good thing. It's a good thing to get a new mayor that's going to have some different ideas. It's good to have a good EDA director. Reed hasn't exactly been in his position 40
Reed's
years either.
Doing a fabulous job.
He's a star. He's just a superstar.
He is.
He's one of my favorite people. I really enjoy Reed, and he's Reed Huttonen, by the way. I don't believe we've ever said his full name, but Reed, for those that don't know, started, I think, got in, was the Parks guy,
right?
At a very, a young age, like late 20s, early 30s.
I think he's been there 8 or 9 years now.
And then when Mr. Murphy left, there was, of course, an application process and all the things, and he won the race, as they say, and so here he is.
Been a great hire addition to him, and that he's doing a great job. He is a great head of
amazing demeanor. Nothing seems to rattle.
If I didn't mention Megan Nelson, who runs everything.
So Reed's great, but Megan, you want to know up from down in the city of East Grand Forks. You talk to Megan. She is
fabulous.
And she's so fat. She's so fast. It's like I email her, boom, it's right. Do you sleep ever? Yeah. I mean, she's always so. I mean, just a lot of great people, and very lucky to have these communities and where we live. The weather could be better, but that's
employees,
okay.
A lot of good department heads. I mean, just everybody's so far since I've been as mayor, even when I was council. Been great to work with. So.
Have you challenged Jason Stordahl to an arm wrestling contest yet?
I haven't lost my brain in melon.
Quite possibly the strongest human being in the area.
Yes.
Again, back to good demeanor, nice guy, all the things, but he works at it too. He works really hard. Mark, thank you. I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate the time. This podcast, I believe, will drop the day after Memorial Day. So I want to, again, thank you for coming out, and I hope that you had a good enough experience where we can do it again.
Oh, enjoyed it. I'd like to come back. It'd be great. So
awesome.